So we are on a completely new subject now. This is all fresh material. And a lot of you might remember it from Algebra 1, but some of you might not. What we are talking about are x and y intercepts. Does anyone know what an x or y intercept is? It is the $1,000,000 question. Meaning, if I actually had $1,000,000 and you got this right, I would totally give it to you. So, for the purposes of our class today, it's an imaginary $1,000,000 question. Does anyone know what x and y intercepts are? Oh, sure, you're all chatty in that chat box till I ask a real question. I mean, if I asked you what your favorite breakfast cereal was, you'd have an answer for me. But x and y intercepts, you should at least know what a y-intercept is because we've been doing stuff in slope-intercept form. It's okay, though. I'll tell you what an x and y-intercept is. An x-intercept is where the graph of a function crosses. So Juliana's on it because she knows that there's a crossing happening. Crosses the x-axis. That being said, what do you think a y-intercept is? Anybody? I feel like, did anyone ever see Ferris Bueller's Day Off? I'm like, anyone? Bueller? Look, I'm going to finish writing it before anyone gives me an answer. It's where the graph of a function crosses the y-axis. What does that mean? It means that if I have this graph right here, this graph that we love so much, and on here I have some function graphed. Who cares what it is, right? What if it graphs like, I don't know what that's a graph of. What I do know, I don't like that one. Let's make it actually go through certain points. So here I have a point, and here I have a point, right? This point right here where it's crossing the y-axis is at x equals 0, y equals 4. That is my y-intercept. This point on the x-axis where x equals -3 and y equals 0 is my x-intercept, right? If you remember, you used to do stuff where it was like y equals mx plus b. And this right here would be our slope. And this right here would be our y-intercept. And all it meant is that whatever number this was, we knew was a point here on this y-axis somewhere, right? And so these are our intercepts. When we get into solving higher level equations, and we will, like the next unit, we move into quadratics, our points on the x-axis, all our x-intercepts become our solutions. They're the solutions to quadratics. But we can graph things by knowing what our x-intercept and our y-intercept are because they're 2 points on a line, right? So today we're going to talk about how to find those 2 points. And there's a key in this graph that we have here. And that if you look at this, everything on our y-axis, those points all have an x value of 0, right? All our points on the x-axis have a y value of 0. Does that make some sense? Because if you think about it, everything that lies on this line right here, right? It doesn't go up or down. Our y numbers are measuring a distance from the x-axis. So if the point is on that x-axis, our y is always going to be 0, right? So anything that lies on this axis has a y value of 0 because we're not going above it and we're not going below it. We're staying right on it. The same can be said for anything on the y-axis, right? Has an x value of 0 because x is just a distance from the y-axis, and we're not moving anywhere from it if the point lies right on it. A quick yes or no would be really good as to whether or not you're kind of seeing that before I move on. If you could just pop that into the... Okay. So what's good about this is it tells us how we can find these numbers, right? And the trick to all of that, if I can find my cursor, is that if I want to find an x-intercept, to find the x-intercept, we set y equal to 0 and solve for x. To find the y-intercept, we set x equal to 0 and we solve for y. Oops, I forgot to write the x up there. So what does that look like algebraically? Well, I'm going to show you. So if I need to find the x and y intercept of, let's see. Oh, I just closed the page with all of my problems listed on it. Not my life problems, but certainly my math problems. Where'd it go? So if I have a problem like y equals 2x minus 2, and I want to find the x and y intercepts, we're just going to do the math on it. We're going to pretend that we don't know that the y-intercept on this is -2 because it's y equals mx plus b, and we know that b is our y-intercept. We're going to pretend not to know that. We're going to do the actual math on it, right? Well, it says to find the x-intercept, we're going to set y equal to 0 and solve for x. So we're going to say that 0 equals 2x minus 2. Right? Well, I'm going to solve for x. So I'm going to move this 2 over. I'm going to add 2 to both sides. And I get 2 equals 2x. But I don't care what 2x equals. I care what x equals. So I'm going to go ahead and divide out that 2. But I can't do it on just the one side because there's an equal sign, which means I have to do it on both sides, right? So 2 divided by 2 is just 1 equals x. So our x-intercept is going to be at 1. If I wanted to write that as a point, it would be 1, 0. My y-intercept, I'm going to set x equal to 0 and solve for y. So this was my x-intercept. This is my y-intercept. Y-int equals 2x. Well, that's 0 minus 2. And if we look at that, 2 times 0 is just 0 minus 2. So my y equals negative 2. If I was going to write that as a point, it would always have an x first and then my y value. These are my x and y intercepts. Not super difficult work. Finding the y-intercept is significantly easier than the x because there's less work and usually things just zero out with x. But none of it is all that hard. So we're going to do a couple more. And I'm going to have you guys do one. Because I'm mean. She's not the nicest person. What can I tell you? It's how I roll. What if I have, oh no, what if I have, where am I? F of x equals 6x plus, oh, get rid of this f of x for right now. I'm going to do it like this, equals negative 15. So I have 6x plus 5y equals negative 15, right? If I want to find my x-intercept, I'm going to plug in 0 for y. So I've got 6x plus 5 times 0 equals negative 15, and I'm going to solve the whole thing for x. Well, 5 times 0 is just 0. So I'm left with 6x equals negative 15. Am I done? Heck no. Got to get that x by itself. It's still multiplied by 6. So I'm going to fix that by dividing. Here I'm going to get x equals. Can I leave this as negative 15ths over 6? Absolutely not. Each of these are divisible by 3. Negative 15 divided by 3 is negative 5. 6 divided by 3 is 2. Now this fraction can't be reduced any further. So this is my x-intercept. My y-intercept, well, we're going to set the x equal to 0. So I'm going to have 6 times 0 plus 5y equals negative 15. I'm going to go ahead and solve for y. This is just 0. So I have 5y equals negative 15. We're going to divide by 5 to get that y by itself. And we get y equals negative 3. If I wanted to graph this, which I easily could, right? Come on down here. We've got these points right here, right? What do we know? We know x is minus 5 halves. Well, that's negative 2.5. This is negative 2, so it's a point right here, halfway between negative 2 and negative 3. Y is at negative 3, so I have a point right here at negative 3. All I have to do is connect the dots, put arrows on both ends, right? We have graphed this function just by connecting our dots. So There's a couple reasons to understand intercepts. One, because your x-intercepts are going to be your solutions later. And two, because it does allow us to graph equations pretty easily. If we know both points for our intercepts, we don't have to know anything else. We can graph the equation of that line. Does anyone have any questions pertaining to intercepts? Eric doesn't. Does anybody else? Jasmine doesn't. Jasmine's got it. Look at y'all like jumping in with the nose now. I'm going to give you one to solve and find the intercepts for. If you guys get them right, I'm going to let you go. If you don't get it right, I'm going to fail everybody. Just kidding. You don't have to graph it. You just have to tell me what the intercepts are. All right. So I'm going to go with, I want one that has like a decent answer though, that I don't want to give you a crazy one. I'm trying to avoid fractions for you. All right. I want you to find the intercepts of 4x minus y equals 8. Find the x and y intercepts. Once you find them, put them into the chat box. Don't trust somebody else's answer that's in the chat box because they could be wrong. And I'm going to stop the recording since we're really not adding anything new from here on out.